what's perfect is we've looked at this 125-year timeline and seen, both all the, like, the smaller events, the products that have come and gone, uh, but we've also looked at, like, the theme. So this is a perfect year. We're gonna tell this story of 125 years, how much has changed in this world, that idea. But at the same time, 1901, the organization was founded by a group of retailers who wanted to fight counterfeit products, false advertising, and they wanted to negotiate better freight prices. How much has really changed? Yeah.
Well, hello, and thanks for being here for yet another episode of Geeses of Gear. I appreciate you and happy to be on air with you today. So today's podcast is actually a really cool one for me, a special one. Um, if you've heard any of my life story stuff, you'll know that I cut my teeth in the music retail world, working at a small like rock and roll guitar shop in Calgary, Canada. and I really loved all of that until I realized that basically a guitar deal was $1,000 and you could make a sound and lighting sale for 100,000. And so the numbers just made a lot more sense moving into a more sort of commercial side of the business. And that's when, eventually I connected with Martin Lighting and became a part of their team. And the rest is history, as they say. But I have so many fond, amazing memories of traveling like to LA once a year, beginning in the 80s, the early 80s, actually, to visit the NAMM Show. It was amazing. Artists like, Eddie Van Halen and Stevie Wonder, Nikki Sixx, all the 80s flashy guitar players, Paul Gilbert, Tony McAlpine, just incredible musicians just walking around in the aisles of this trade show because it was all big music retailers who were there. And um, the only sort of non-music retailers, non-professional, I guess, attendees that always seemed to find their way in there was these, cute little girls in miniskirts, tight, short, little, tiny miniskirts. Stuff that I was not accustomed to seeing in Calgary, Canada, but in LA it was pretty common. And of course, they're there because the rock stars are there. So it was the 80s after all. Um, but anyway, this year marks the 125th birthday of NAMM, which is a pretty big deal. And so the 2026 NAMM show will take place in a couple of weeks from this recording. You might be hearing this after the fact, but it's on January 20th to 24th, 2026, which is where we're at right now. And like it's been for most of the years that it was out, it moved to LA for a long time, or for a while they were rebuilding the Anaheim Convention Center. But it's in the Anaheim Convention Center in Anaheim, California, across the street from Disneyland. And as always, of course, it's featuring exhibits, live music, education, networking, but a lot of special stuff to celebrate its 125th anniversary. Also, summits, workshops, topics like AI, of course, marketing, product showcases, and then evening concerts. And, again, I remember in the 80s, these legendary concerts where you'd have uh, Leslie West from Mountain fronting a band with Eddie Van Halen playing guitar and Elliot Easton from the Cars playing guitar and again, crazy good musicians all over the place. You could go to a concert at night and see anyone. I mean, literally anyone. And so really cool. But anyways, the NAMM show again is in a couple of weeks from, again, January 20th to 24th. If you are in or around LA, try and get to it. Huge organization, great organization. they do so much about education and everything. I'm really, really excited to have today's guest on. So, uh, John Mlynczak, I hope I said it right because I actually rehearsed it prior to this because it's not quite spelled like that. But John Mlynczak is the president and CEO of the National Association of Music Merchants, or better known as NAMM, the world's largest music industry organization. Since stepping into the role in 2023, John has focused on evolving the NAMM Show through a relationship first, tech forward approach that strengthens year round engagement and meaningful connections. A lifelong trumpeter, educator, and technology leader, John previously served as vice president of music education and technology at Hal Leonard and director of education at PreSonus. He taught at the university level, led national music education organizations, and remains deeply connected to the creative side of the industry. At his core, John believes the future of music and NAMM is built on empathy, innovation, and human connection. So please welcome John Mlynczak. How are you, John?
I'm good. How are you?
I already introduced you before you got on, so I don't have to remember how to say your last name. But I actually had to rehearse. I went to ChatGPT and I said, "Give me a phonic pronunciation of your last name," and it said Mlynczak.
That's
So,
I've never asked ChatGPT how to say it, I guess.
well, it said two different things. It said the more common way is Mlynczak,
Check, yeah.
and but the more formal Polish way of saying it is Mlynczak.
Yeah.
And so I said Mlynczak and got lucky, I guess.
Look at you.
So
Great. Well, it's good to be on.
yeah,
Happy
yeah, no, I
January.
appreciate you doing it. Especially, I mean, you got to be busy. Like the show's in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah. Funny enough, um, yes, it's busy, but it's also a time when like we have a, amazing, 60-person staff at NAM and amazing people here. There comes a time about nowish that everyone's just so heads down that like I do get a little bit of quiet time to really focus on like Myers the show, have conversations like this. So it's actually an okay time to have this. It's not that busy for me and everyone's so heads down focused that we're just all, chugging along.
Yeah, if you haven't figured it out by now, you're pretty much screwed,
That's
right?
exactly what like there's no big
Yeah.
strategic decision for NAM 26 that hasn't been made in April, So like
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah. So I got to tell you a personal story. So, this NAMM is kind of a personal thing to me because I went to my first NAMM show. I just figured it out right before I got on this in 1983.
I
And
was born in 1983.
I was 18 years old. So I'm 18 years older than you.
There we go.
And at the time, I was working for a small chain of music stores in Canada. Actually, I think they were probably only one store at that time. They were in Calgary. And it was a rock and roll guitar shop, and so we all had hair halfway down our backs, and went to this show. It was my first time in LA, and went to the show, and of course, back in the early '80s, um, it was very different. Like, I mean, you probably still have rock stars walking around the aisles and stuff, but back then, I mean, you could literally run into Eddie Van Halen and like anyone, like name them, and you could run into them in the aisles, and lots of very lovely young ladies in miniskirts as well. So they were there because the musicians were there, of course. And I haven't been to it in the last couple of years, so I'm not sure if it's still like that at all. But and the bar at the Hilton across the street used to just be complete manic, from the time the show closed until whenever they closed, 2 or 3 in the morning. But I have many years of those memories going to NAMM, and it was so much fun, and it was just such a cool way to see, the new guitars and the new equipment, and we were small, so we weren't placing, we'd have to wait in line behind Guitar Center and all the real companies. We couldn't get right in to see the main guitar guys because we'd have to wait and do it behind. But it was also a time back then when most of the manufacturers and I think all of the retailers were independent. There were no big roll-ups of all the manufacturers into these groups of manufacturers and stuff. Like we dealt with Paul Hamer at Hamer Guitars. He
Yeah.
wasn't part of what I think he became part of. What was it? Cayman Music Group or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Um, But anyways, yeah, so I have a lot of history with NAMM and back then it was probably, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people went to NAMM. I'm sure now it's a couple 100,000 or something, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's about 70,000, and its
Oh, is
height
it?
the highest it was about 100, just north of 100, but, post-COVID, and we've been careful about attendance 'cause it's actually really great to start there. You think about, like, what the purpose of the industry gathering is, 'cause,
Yeah.
well, there's a lot of I mean, first of all, getting everyone in the same room, you solve a lot of problems. You can make a lot of plans, you can build a lot of relationships with all your suppliers, retailers, manufacturers, partners. I mean, there's immense value in that. When you talk about the artists, I mean, the artists walk around. I just was talking about this earlier today. One of the great things about the NAMM show is it's the star, the rock star is the product. And so
Yeah.
when you have like an Eddie Van Halen, you have a Stevie Wonder, or anyone that comes to the NAMM show and they start running, going around, the artists are there because they want to see the products. They want to see the product managers. They want to see the people in Vinny. I know a lot of our companies bring their product managers to talk to artists of all levels to understand how they use the products and how they should innovate. And it's a safe place for artists to walk around. I mean, I know people are always fanning out, but we don't expect folks to run up to an artist and mob them with selfies and autographs. I mean, it's sort of is an industry show. We're all here working in the music products industry, but we're here to see the latest and greatest and build relationships. I think at its core, that hasn't changed. Now, the products, the type of music, the innovation, the size and scope of the show obviously is much different today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that, of course. And it's also probably a lot more corporate than it was back then. I mean, you could quite often go to booths and people were either still drunk from the night before or, or they'd already started drinking that morning or whatever.
Yeah, it's
It's a
definitely
much
a
more
family show
professional show
now.
now, I think.
The
Yeah.
constant intoxication and the mini skirts are not part of the core of NAMM. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting too. We have over, 175 or so bands, a bands at NAMM program. All these bands want to go out and showcase to the industry. That's a big part of it. A lot of the booth strategy, and I'm sure it was back then too, is always been about, like, making the products, come to life, showing the experience of the product. So getting an artist in the booth to talk about the product, to demo it. So between what's demoing in all of the booths and what the concerts around campus, which a lot of brands, try to get their artist on stage so they can showcase product too. It all goes about to, like, this is where you see and hear all of this stuff come to life. And that's an environment we work really hard to preserve, and, it's gotta be high quality. And coming out of
Mm,
COVID when we had no show and just the evolution that was already happening of, everything moving online and, quite frankly, including product launches and things like that. What's the value of a trade show in 2025 or 26 now versus 1996? And it's a different value, but there's still value. And we think a
right.
lot about, like, what that is. I mean, there's 3 things, there's 3 legs on the trade show stool. It's pretty simple. It's exhibits, education, and networking. Those are the 3 legs on a trade show stool. But you gotta get them right. And for NAMM, our growth, out of only, am I retailer and manufacturer into, is it is it combo? Is it a guitar shop? Is it a full line shop? Is it a school music retailer? Is it a rental house? Is it a backline company? Is it a lesson studio, repair shop? Like there's all sorts of like evolution of that. But then you look at like the explosion of live sound, lighting, all the other areas that NAMM touches as far as like product segments. What's interesting to us right now is we think of NAMM as like I don't know the exact number because depending on how you slice and dice it, it could be 9 to 70 small shows that are under one massive umbrella. Because you take like a Pro Lighting in ACC North now, you have all our Pro Sound, you got Pro Audio. These are companies that are flying speakers, at major stadiums. They're worried about weight. They're worried about, the right, sting pointing and making amazing sound in places that were never designed to make amazing sound. Uh,
Right.
and who are they looking for? They're looking for front of house engineers that know how to work with their gear. the people to put them on their rider. They're looking for major artists to put their gear on their rider. They're looking for these rental companies, the Claire Globals of the world, to make sure that like that gear is what they're stocking and putting on the road. And we serve that. We serve all of that. At the same time, you have let's call it manufacturer of a trumpet that's trying to make sure that everyone that's selling trumpets to students is, again, that's a completely different audience. And quite frankly,
Yeah,
those
it is.
those two worlds might never collide. So you think about like what's the exhibit experience, the networking experience, and the education experience for those two worlds, and then you expand that into like percussion and fretting and all these other areas. Um, that's the cool thing about what we can do today with technology, with how we develop the show. Um, and that's what's really exciting about how NAMM's evolved, because we are the largest and only, global music products trade show, and
Yeah.
we protect that dearly.
For 50 years, ETC has made a name for itself in the world of entertainment technology. You can find ETC products in buildings of every size across the entire globe. Broadway shows, rock concerts, sports stadiums, outdoor parks, TV studios, and convention centers, you name it. They have all trusted ETC to make their spaces beautiful and safe. Many of these spaces include rigging systems to keep them running smoothly and safely. Fortunately, ETC Rigging offers a range of hoists and controls to accommodate the unique needs of various production spaces and budgets. ETC's motorized hoists and hoist control systems raise theater technology, including stage curtains, lighting equipment, backdrops, projection screens, and more. And the recent addition of Prodigy Balance, a new counterweight rigging solution for loads up to 1,200 pounds, brings more options to venues looking for safe, user-friendly rigging. If you need backstage rigging that is easy to learn and safe for students and volunteers to use, Prodigy Balance could be the answer. ETC is known for its customer support and 24/7, 365 availability. But now, employees have even more of a personal stake in maintaining that reputation because ETC has become 100% employee owned. Each person building the rigging systems, developing the control software, and answering support calls is actually an owner at ETC. Outstanding support, reliable products, innovative technologies. This is the foundation of excellence ETC has built over the past 50 years, and they plan to deliver more in the next 50. For the latest ETC products and installation news, visit etcconnect.com.
Well, Music Mess, I assume, was much larger. I mean, me
It
having gone
was
there
larger.
multiple times, yeah, with the multiple halls, and you had to take the train or the bus or whatever in
Uh-huh.
between the different halls. That show was, ridiculously large, like you had to do so much walking and traveling just to see everything.
Yeah.
It was almost impossible. And to find that little magical booth in the corner that I always found at NAMM, some new small independent guy making bridges or pickups or something. And, finding that and bringing it up to Canada was always something that we did really well with back in the day, because we'd find some weird little rock and roll amplifier or something that nobody had heard of in Canada, and guitar players would eat it up. They'd be like, "Oh my God,
Mhm.
this is so different." And, but you said a couple things there that I want to grab onto for a second and ask a couple questions. So first, you mentioned the bands of NAMM, or bands, I think it was called
Yeah,
Bands of
bands of
NAMM.
NAMM.
So are these like amateur bands that are still unknown, or are we talking about the
It's
big bands?
it's a lot of, it's a lot of up and coming, a lot of independent artists, some that are, pretty well known. And it really came out, that program came out of, just this sheer amount of bands that were asking us to play. And for years, for decades, we're like, hey, we're a trade show. But then more exhibitors and more brands got out there and said, hey, we have so and so, we endorse this band, we'd love to have an opportunity for them to play. And what it's turned into is we have like, I guess I could share this, like 1,300 plus applications to play for
Wow.
175 spots now. And these are
Wow.
people, so we actually vet them very carefully. And it's, so there's some really cool bands out there that are performing. And it's just, we're not a public concert at all, by all means, but we are a music product show and we need to show off music products. If we were the National Association of Insurance Salespeople, it might be a different story, but we're not.
Yeah, yeah. You've got the right audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are these bands primarily playing, like, are these for nighttime events, the parties and all that stuff, or on the trade show floor as well?
Not on the floor, so it's really outside. It's on the NAMM campus, but
Okay.
it's so the Yamaha main stage. There's 3 stages that are outside. So the bands are on stage all day, and then in the hotels, the 4 hotels, there's bands every night. So between daytime on stages and nighttime in the hotels, there's a very healthy rotation of artists. But a
Yeah.
lot of those artists are already at the NAMM show, and so it's sort of like a dream to it's an industry show. You want to perform for your peers. Like you're at a hang and you want to pull out a guitar and say, "Hey, we're all musicians. Let's share." Which
Right. Yeah. So the other thing that is interesting that you said, because I've been talking about this for years on, some of the industry trade shows for my part of the industry, the live event side of it, that are very specialized to that side of the industry, have been evolving, struggling, whatever you want to call it, because all of the product launches, and I'm sure the same in the music retail world, all of the product launches were always timed around the trade shows, because that was, again, I'm talking about when I was in the musical instrument business. This was the 80s and 90s. But back then, if you wanted to see the new stuff, you had to go to the trade show. You weren't going to see it on the internet because there was no internet, and there weren't these traveling road shows, and even retailers didn't tend to get the stuff early enough that you could see it or whatever. So, if you were especially a retailer and you wanted to see what's coming for this season or whatever, you had to go to the trade shows. And that doesn't seem to be quite as critical anymore. So it's evolved into a different thing. And like you said, you get into uh, networking and education and all of the other things that are happening at a trade show like that.
No, yeah, I'm glad you went there. And again, we have done so much research on not only what our industry wants, but also trade shows in general and the value. So you're right. If a company wants to launch a product, they can do an incredible video campaign. They can get their dealers engaged. They can do a product launch any day of the year. And, we live in a world with so much technology that you don't have to travel in and have one time a year to see it. But what happens now at the NAMM show is we do get a lot of product launches still. I mean, I just don't want to discount that. There's a ton of product launches. What we see are, the products generally Q4 is a big time of product launches. That's kind of when you want the new and the shiny. So anyone that's launched anything online through a great coordinated campaign, NAMM is the place where you can put your hands on it. Anyone who's going to launch something earlier in the year, NAMM is the place that you get the sneak peek. So you still have sort of that like in-person touch point. The other thing we think a lot about is, we talk about like we don't provide exhibit space to our members. I mean, we do, but we're not an exhibit space company. We provide brand demand. Like we create brand demand. People come to NAMM. These exhibitors spend a lot of time and a lot of money. Some have full-time teams that spend half a year planning NAMM. So we take that very seriously. They're investing a lot. They're coming because they want to create more demand for their brands in those 3 to 5 days than they can any other way of the year. And that's our service. And so getting every possible podcaster, influencer, major media, every endorsed artist, educator, in addition to, retail supplier, all those people there that are going to put their hands on that product, that are going to see it, they're going to build a relationship because they want to create ambassadors. So yeah, I mean, you'll come to NAMM as a brand and you'll have 75,000 people walking around. But like I mentioned, 75,000 people aren't going to every segment. Every product segment has its own niche community. But what we're looking at and the reason we control attendance is we're looking at getting the 75,000 people who help this brand find the 5 to 10,000 people that are going to be influencers and tell their brand story to another couple 100,000 people all year because they're on the road, because they're on podcasts, because they're out there as evangelists, because they're teaching people how to use products. You may call them like the 5Xers, like the people at the NAMM show. Every booth interaction, that person should walk away and tell 5 other people about your brand. Have a following, have a growth. And so we take it seriously that we want to make sure that what we deliver is an audience that will add value to those products. And we feel really good about that right now. We really, obviously, new technology, new tools. We have ways of measuring and seeing our audience that just never existed before. And we're utilizing like every possible trade show technology tool to understand who's at the show and how they're interacting and using that data to continuously improve.
Yeah, I actually want to get into some of that in a bit because I know you guys have gotten into using some of the AI and some of the more recent marketing tools and stuff to be able to really figure out exactly who your audience is and what they want. Um, but so, I think you started in your role in what, 2023?
Correct. April of
Yeah.
2023.
So sort of a pivotal moment, I guess, for the industry in that,
Very much.
2020, everything kind of went crazy and music retail was so big during COVID. And then I think had a bit of a hangover right after it. And obviously, no trade shows for a while too. So what did that first year feel like for you? Not only are you in a new seat in a new part of your career, but also it's a new moment for NAMM.
That's a really great question. So when I started, I was at the April 23 trade show, introduced as new CEO, and I officially took over May 1st. So it was just that I had 1 month. And we knew at that time there was obviously the California, you couldn't have shows in 21. The decision was made to do kind of a June show, an April show, and then a January show. This was like June 22, April 23, January 24. That was the plan. And the plan was, oh yeah, and then new leader's going to come in, figure it out. So I started in the middle of this, and
Awesome.
then it was like, we didn't have the major brands. You look at some of the press back then, it's like NAMM is dead, trade show, and Music Mesa had announced they're never coming back. So it was like the demise of everything. There was a big, I can't remember the one, like entertainment sports. There was a big a video game show that collapsed, and it was an interesting time. I had a moment of like, okay, we're gonna do this. But I was interviewing for the job knowing this is what I was coming into. So what's it been like? When I started, we knew like, a NAMM show takes 18 months to plan. So, I mean, I started, it was all roads lead to the return to January of 24. That was always the plan. Get back to January. April and June are horrible times to do NAMM shows. We know that now. So we're not going to do that again. So we're getting back to January. And honestly, there's not a lot, there wasn't really a lot I could influence in that first cycle between May and January because so much has to happen so fast. But I said, you know what, I'm going to listen and learn as much as I can. I toured I went and traveled to every person who, has been longtime loyal supporters. I went out and traveled and talked to every member company who is like, I'm never coming to NAMM again. You learn a lot of time, you break bread, you go down, you have lunch, you have dinner. So give me 10 years of grievances. What I learned during that time, both from like the really loyal supporters and everyone between is this thing didn't happen in 2 years. And it's just the evolution of trade shows. It had been happening for 10, 15 years. It gets bigger and bigger. You mentioned Music Mesa, massive, massive, bigger and bigger and bigger. And there'd been this sort of like buildup of like, there's too many people. I can't do business. I don't know my audience. I need to get back to my core. And I heard it enough times and I realized that the clear path at the time was quality, not quantity. Because there's an easy decision here. I could get 100,000 people to show up at the NAMM show, free badges for every musician to come in and see all these toys. Done, right? Easy.
Yeah.
And then I could go and say, hey, everyone, we got 100,000 people, come exhibit. But we made a conscious effort. That's not the path. The path is quality. Who do you want to see? Why do you want to see them? I asked a simple question to every leader in this industry, one-on-one, said, look, what would be, if I could gather the whole global industry in one room, in one place at one time, what do you want? What would you do with that experience? And what came out of that was some interesting ideas. One was we'd want to do more content creation. We'd want to use it as a content creation tool. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, then we'd want to have more ways to get our brand outside of that world. Like, how can we use the energy of that physical location to get our brand more public? I said, okay, that's interesting. So that's public, but not bring the public to you, but use the platform to get your information to the public. That's an interesting model. And then some people said, I want to be more experiential. I don't want carpet and a guitar on a hanger and a booth. I want a room where I can create experience. I can cultivate who comes in. I can have more time with people. So out of that, we started doing some interesting things. We made the Creator Lounge. We invited every influencer out there. We made it a content creation experience for companies to create content all through the show. And that's been really successful. We brought in this content creation machine so that people could tell the story of products externally. So that started to work really well. And then we also look at like more brands, might want to be up on a room. I'll use one example. Like Roland is, doing this curated experience up on like a whole like 4 ballrooms in the second floor. They have different experiences because they have DW, they have Slingerland, they have Roland, they have Boss. Just as an example of a company that's like consolidated brand that wants to tell their story. But we got there by, going to Japan and sitting with their CEO, going up to LA and sitting with their US president, having real conversations. And that was 24 show. If they weren't exhibiting, I said, come as my guest and I will meet with you. We'll walk the floor and tell me what you see from your eyes. And then by 25, we had everyone back. I said, okay, come back, but the way you want to come back. And we created new experiences. We cultivated, we tested a lot. And we've seen the success of everyone back in 25. They're back in 26. And we're really, we've become like concierge service to NAMM members. So it's interesting for the organization. We had to do some internal restructuring where instead of having like trade show sales, membership sales, and blah, 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 we created like a business development team. I mean, I will shamelessly say it's like you take a cue from Sweetwater. Somebody needs to wake up in the morning, look at a list of accounts and say, I need to call this person and ask what they need. And we said, okay, let's break up our industry by segments. So everyone in the school music segments has a person who wakes up at NAMM every day and says, my job is to cultivate and serve this group and live performance.
You never had that before.
Yeah, we did not. We had we had like sales teams, but the sales teams were semi by territory, but sometimes by account. But we also said, we're going to bring in the retailers and the exhibitors. I mean, a NAMM member is a NAMM member because what was interesting is that what the exhibitors want is, well, how do I get these people to my booth? And so we said, well, we consolidated 2 teams, made a bigger team, gave them territories and said, your job is school music. So every retailer that's serving school music, every manufacturer that's making product, every distributor in the middle, that's your territory. And you can speak to the manufacturers about all the retailers that are going to attend. You can speak to the retailers about the manufacturers. You can be the middle person in all these relationships. And so your job is to build a segment of the industry. And you can do that holistically. And we have now member services as a support team behind that. A lot of NAMM Foundation is a team behind that because people always want to be philanthropic and work on their strategies. And what's interesting is like this person, like we have NAMM members that like now sit in planning meetings with companies, like NAMM team members, like our staff. And they're funny. They're like, they're just kind of brainstorming. I'm like, good, stay in the room. We're an association. We're not a for-profit trade show. We have to serve the industry. We have no private equity to meet goals for. We have no EBITDA to hit. We have the flexibility to do what's right. So that's the transition. It was quality. It was listening to our members. It was restructuring the team so that your NAMM business development account manager is like part of your team. And it's exciting to see, but it happens so slow. I'm a product developer that gets to try my product 5 days a year. And it drives me crazy sometimes because we know all the things that we want to do, but it's like, okay, we're going to try this 1 year, then we're going to adapt it the next year.
You got to wait a whole nother year.
You got to wait 3 years.
That is incredible.
To do something.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
So now
That's wild.
the long story here is now that we're in 26, This is the third January show. So 24 was listen, get everyone back. 25 was try a lot of new, get a lot of ideas, what worked, people are doubling down on, what not, they're refining. Now we're into 26. And we're going to see, a lot of success of brands there. And now we're really looking at like, okay, now the reset, I just did this with the staff, is the reset now is we're past the COVID, we're past the are we dead, we're past the are the brands ever coming back? They're all back. And we have
Yeah.
I can pick up the phone, talk to any industry, like, oh, NAMM, which is great. And quite frankly, it's been great. I mean, this has been a terrifying 2025, emphasis on tariff. But through all that
Yeah.
thing, like, we were able to, like, put together a tariff working group and sign onto letters and lobby with guitar manufacturers, and just it gave us the opportunity to show companies that, like, we mean it, like, we're gonna help you in times of need. So we're going into this year with a lot of momentum. So now we're like, fast forward to this show, I'm really excited because that's now the precedent. And we're gonna keep growing. Now I said that this is no longer the third show of the 24, 25, 26. This is the first show of like 26 through 30. We're
Yeah.
working with members, we're part of their teams, we're building really cool new brand experiences. Fender's a good example. Fender came back last year. They had a very specific need last year. They wanted to do their custom night. They wanted to get their dealers. They wanted to do a dealer meeting. They did a private room for dealers, massive room, beautiful guitars, 800 custom guitars. They did a really cool thing that served them last year. This year, when's this posting? They're making a major product launch. It's embargoed, so I can't say too much. They're doing a major product launch, but it's all around their digital assets. It's
Interesting.
PreSonus, Fender Stereo,
Interesting.
they're doing a major product release on that area. So this year at the show, they're actually doing an on the floor digital booth, bringing in some artists, demonstrating some digital software things. Like, it's a completely different footprint. But the great thing is, I can drive up to, Corona here in California or pick up the phone and have a conversation with Fender anytime we want and say, what do you need from the 26 NAMM show? And in
Yeah.
27, I'm sure they'll do something different. And that's okay. I think that's what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
Light, a trusted name in dry hire lighting and stage equipment rentals. Whether you're lighting a theater show, producing a major concert, or building out a broadcast set, Mainlight delivers the gear you need to make your vision a reality. They offer a massive inventory of the latest moving lights, control consoles, trusses, LED fixtures, and durable IP65 rated gear that's perfect for both indoor and outdoor environments. From small-scale productions to massive stadium tours, Mainlight is known across the industry as the partner you trust with the gear you want. But that's not all. Mainlight also offer new equipment sales from your favorite brands and used gear pulled direct from their rental fleet. Every used item is rigorously maintained and backed by a 60-day depot warranty, giving you confidence and value in every purchase. With 3 strategically located facilities in Teterboro, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, and Las Vegas, Nevada, you get nationwide access and the responsiveness of a local provider. Explore their rental inventory, request a custom quote, or browse their sales offerings online today at mainlight.com.
You're scaring me though, because you're reminding me of, so back when I was a big NAMM goer as a retailer, not when I was an exhibitor, but when I was a retailer, one of the years we were a PV dealer. This was probably 1987-ish, 88. And we were a pretty big PV dealer in Canada. And at the time, PV was a really big thing. It was one of the big lines. And so we get to NAMM, and PV used to always do this thing called the PV pre-show. It was the day before the show opened, and they had a huge ballroom and a stage, and some big band would come in. And so this year, you go through a bunch of presentations from Hartley and Malia and their team. And then the band would come on stage, and usually there would be a new product of some sort that was being introduced by whoever the band was. Well, this was Pablo Cruz, which you may or may not even remember who Pablo Cruz was. But so it was Pablo Cruz, and they come out and they're playing these keyboards, and you're like, what is that? and it was a PV keyboard. And you could just kind of collectively see the whole room go, oh, Jesus. Because this was back when you couldn't have PV and this and this and
Mhm,
this.
mhm.
Like, dealerships were very exclusive and very specific. And so now, what do we tell Roland, who we've made a deal with to be our exclusive keyboard line? And now PV's bringing keyboards. We're going to take some flack from Roland or whatever. But anyway, sorry. It reminded me of that when you're all secretive of what they're
Oh, the
going to be launching.
consolidation, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like, and we're a consolidated industry right now. And that's
Yeah.
another thing too. It's a different footprint, and companies are trying different things. I mentioned Roland's example. I mean, at the time, Roland was not a drum company. Roland's a drum
Yeah.
company now. DW is legit, and
Yeah.
they've rolled. And so you can go on and on. Companies like KHS and others, and Eastman, and just these consolidated brands, and they're all doing great and they're successful, and it's what the industry is right now. For us as a NAMM show, like, what hall do you put a company in who makes
Drums
mixers
and
and
keyboards
drums
and recording
and
devices. Yeah.
and pedals and
Yeah.
all that? And
Yeah, it's true.
and so some companies have decided to do small footprints in multiple halls. Some companies have decided to do a massive brand experience of their own, and they alternate. And, there's always, plus or minuses to each. But again, for us, back to like, what is the NAMM show now and how we brought it back to the, success of where it is we know we have to listen to companies. We know we have to like experiment with them. And I kind of went through this, like, one of the epiphany moments is like, we serve, we don't sell. We don't sell booths. We serve companies so they can create an incredible brand experience to help strengthen their business. And that mentality, again, restructuring internally, just keeping that mentality inside of like, yeah, if a company wants to try something, it's like, sure. I use this line all the time, and I say use this line, I mean it. One of my, greatest thing was sometimes, people come at us with a lot of passion. Or I said, look, who the hell am I to tell you what to do with your business? You are the blah, blah, blah of company. You know your business better than anyone in the world. I'm not telling you at all how to run your business. All I'm
Yeah.
telling you is let us strategize with you on how to get the most. We know all the like things that are happening at NAMM that you might not know. There could be an audience on the other side of campus that could help you that you don't know about. Just let us talk. We're not going to, and just having that open relationship with members has been really, really good for us.
I don't know if you deal with this too, but one of the large conferences or conventions, trade shows I was just at, a lighting show, which I won't mention any names, but one of the common talking to the vendor side, the exhibitor side, one of the common things was just how much the cost has exploded over the past, since COVID, especially. And, to a point where, the lighting business is a lot. We don't have companies the size of Yamaha or Roland
Mhm.
in the lighting business. It's a much smaller market. And when you have booths that are costing you over $1 million, it's becoming such a large bite out of your marketing budget that you literally have to walk out of there with a couple $1 million in orders, or else it hasn't been
Mhm.
worth doing. And so I would expect that you've had some of those conversations with just the sort of exploding costs coming since COVID, especially. And I would guess that especially closer to COVID, when companies were still like, what the heck is going
Uh-huh.
on? Like, is our industry over? Is our industry booming? What is happening? So
Yeah.
how has that been? Has that been an issue, a challenge, a concern?
Um,
Yeah.
yes. Trade shows in general. I mean, there's a lot of things that exploded costs after COVID too. And a lot of it, and the number one cost of trade show is really labor. And it's because you have local labor, you have union labor costs, hotel labor. So labor costs trickle up to everyone. The hotel rates, the rates of the convention center, everyone's rates because we contract a lot of folks, all the same folks. It all comes down to their costs go up because labor goes up. And I get that. I mean, we're, all about fair wages and supporting people, but it is. The costs have gone up a lot. So a couple things that we're doing to combat that. You mentioned something very important. And I just did an interview with this kind of trade show executive group I'm working in, because the evolution of trade shows to me and the success of the NAMM Show, because I think we're more than just a trade show, but it has changed to a marketing expense. Trade shows are marketing expenses, point blank, full stop. And they were kind of going that way. They were going that way long before COVID. But, back in the day when you're writing $5-10 million in orders, or even $1 million in orders on a $100,000 booth, who cares? It's a cog. $100,000 booth, a couple big dinners at Morton's, some questionable expenses on there that we're just going to write off. Whatever, doesn't matter. I sold $1 million in order. It's a cost doing business. We're good. And that was a lot of it. There was a lot of money flowing through. And I think over time, when people started realizing I can write orders all the time, especially during COVID when they had to figure out how to do it, we fast forward now. Trade shows are a marketing expense. And we take NAMM, we take our obligation to the industry very, very seriously. Like, we are the world's largest and only music product show. We have to get this right for our industry. So if it's all a marketing expense, I know this because I talk to companies all the time. Companies are sitting around, they're going to do their budgets, and they're going to look at this big marketing budget. And somewhere down there's going to be direct Google spend, there's going to be meta ads, there's going to be partners, there's going to be local events, there's going to be artist relations, there's going to be magazine, typical partner ads, advertising, and there's going to be trade shows. And then there's going to be the biggest line of all, which is going to say NAMM. Every company has that in common. And so we look at ourselves, say, how do we deliver? We have an obligation to make that biggest line that says NAMM the most valuable. We also know that the booth costs, are generally 20 to 25% of a company's total spend, because they're going to fly people out, they're going to do the dinners, they're going to have to buy carpet, they're going to have to ship product, they're going to hire other contractors. Like, whatever dollar amount they're giving us, we know that we have to at least deliver 4 to 5 times more for them to break even. So the transition for us to add value is back to, like, how do we compete as marketing ROI? And I hear this all the time. I'll be very honest with you. Companies come at us and say, look, I can spend the same $100,000 on Facebook ads and I could get all of this, and I can get click conversions and all this stuff, and CAC and ROI and ROAS and all this stuff. So we say, well, our obligation is to figure out how our audience has more value for your dollar. And if we don't figure that out, we're out of business. But the good thing is we have figured it out, and we feel confident about it. So a couple things. First of all, that mentality means that the quality of audience, because you compare to digital advertising, no one cares about impressions. They don't really care about reach. They really want click-through. You can talk about all those other things in the world, but it's like, did I reach the right person who clicked my ad and did a thing? We're all CTA at NAMM.
Click
So
through and
back to the,
conversion.
like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get 100,000 people, because that's just impression jargon that marketing consultants try to sell on. Sorry, marketing consultants. I don't believe impressions. We're all CTA. Everyone that we want to enter into the NAMM Show and walk around with a badge needs to be someone that's going to take the action you want them to take. Like, that's who we're going for. And if that's 150,000 people, that's great. If that's 75,000 people, that's great. But we don't want to waste people's time. So we do that. We've spent the last year, reinventing our complete tech stack. And we're having, a couple of things that happen when you reinvent your entire system top to bottom. And then you have to take all the old data that was never collected or organized to fit in the new system and jam it in. That's the bigger problem. The systems work great. It's the old data that doesn't want to participate well. But we'll get through it. But what we're doing now is everyone that comes to the show is qualified through individual profiles. We know what they do in the industry, whether in the live event category, they're the retail buyer. We have about 90 different roles and about 12 categories that we qualify every single person. And we can deliver that now and report on it. We can deliver that through the new app we're using. We can deliver that through registration, scans at sessions. So not only do we know who's at the show, but, and we're not selling anyone's information. We're not doing anything with data privacy. We're protecting people, but we know this person is a lighting designer, and I know where they went, and I know they pulled up the app and they searched these things, or they favorited these sessions. or they scanned into this networking thing. Through that, we now can deliver to companies exactly. So the conversations we're able to have with companies is not by a booth, because you might run into some great people, but we're able to sit with companies and say, we are the best audience ROI experience you have. The reason we're the largest dollar amount in your marketing budget is because we deliver the largest value. And I can tell you exactly, oh, you sell guitars? I can tell you every guitar buyer, every retailer that carries guitar, every distributor, supplier, everyone else. You want to reach them? We can help you reach them targeted. We can do events. We can get them to you. Also, I can tell you everyone at the show who plays guitar. I can even tell you what type of music they listen to. Did you know that 35% of people that scanned into your booth actually listen to country music? I bet you, huh? That's a new but this is the type of information that we're collecting now, and
Yeah, that's
it
cool.
allows us to be that type of ROI. And
Yeah.
that's where it gets really exciting.
Well, these days, with all the marketing automation that's out there and AI and everything else, you almost have to be that slick. Like, otherwise you're way too old school, you know?
Well, that's the thing.
Uh,
We and kinda get NAMM, and I will say, like, NAMM sometimes gets like, "Oh, the old NAMM, it's the same every year." Like, we're not the old school NAMM. We're not gonna be that. Like, NAMM every year, NAMM 26 is about the success of 2026. NAMM 25 was about 25. NAMM 26 is gonna look a little different, because and NAMM 27, we're not, like, repeating anything. But we also think if we are a marketing expense for companies and we have to deliver that to them, we have to market just as good as they can. And look, there are companies in our industry that are like absolutely, we look at what like someone like a Sweetwater does. We look like a Fender, these massive companies that their marketing machines are beyond impressive. Like, we're
yeah,
a small organization compared to these massive companies, but we aspire to like punch at their level. So I was just in Fort
yeah,
Wayne. I go up to I go so I call the marketing people of Sweetwater and say, "Help us do a better job." And they're great, because they want us to succeed. So
yeah. They're
that's the
great
game
people.
we play. Oh,
That's a
they're
really, really fantastic company.
oh my
Just
gosh.
great company.
What Chuck built.
So, you keep mentioning the 26th show, and I know that it's 125th year birthday anniversary this year, I guess. So, how do you balance sort of honoring a legacy of 125 years while still pushing an organization forward and selling into the future or promoting into the future or whatever? How
Yeah.
do you balance that?
Oh, that's exactly the year. And by I forgot to say with the previous question, we're actually going to announce next week to exhibitors that we've created new programs to make their 2027 exhibit cost less than 26. So
Oh,
we're actually, because we're an association, we can invest more. We're giving back more. We've created discount programs. We've created additional subsidies to actually take off some of the additional fees that they're paying. And we're actually going to announce that we are a trade show. We are 10% less than the average of all comparable trade shows. We have more subsidies that we're already paying for, the additional costs they don't pay, and we can actually help them pay less than they did last year. So we're actually lowering rates. And we
yeah,
can do that
that's good.
because
That's very
we need
helpful.
our industry, to see us fighting for them. So,
Well,
it's
like you
funny.
said, you're an association. You're not a conglomerate of magazines and trade shows and marketing firms and whatever who needs to make a massive profit. So it's a very different model.
It's a different model. And I think we're not pushing our companies to do something they don't want to do. Like, and I kind of talk to our team and say, if you ever feel like you're selling, again, who the heck am I to tell a company who lives and eats and breathes and sleeps their product every single day what they should do with their product for 3 days?
Right. Yeah.
Like, they need to tell us and we need to deliver. And I think if we do that, we'll always be doing the right thing. And I think that's kind of the cool model we have. So 125 years, the timing is quite perfect. Generally at the NAMM show, we have these themes about like, what happened the year before, what we expect the year ahead. That's kind of the loose formula. But it's so last year, I was going back to my notes. Last year, like, okay, we're back. The industry is stable. Inventory, COVID hangover's over. This is going to be year of the growth and stability. I actually laugh because I read my notes from last year. It was going to be the year that all the wackiness had settled down and we are stable. And now we're in a position to grow again because we're past all of that. That was the message. And that was going so well until April 2nd. And then on
Oh,
Liberation
right. Yeah,
Day,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
the
course.
tariffs came, and then we were up and
Brutal.
down and pause and this and
Yeah.
that. So I laugh.
Yeah, that was
So
mayhem for your business, for your customers, basically. That was mayhem, or your
it was
members.
mayhem,
Yeah,
mayhem.
brutal.
Absolutely. And there's still effects of that. So now we're at this point, like we have a 125-year history. The perfect thing is that we could relive last year. No one wants to see us talk about like the struggles of last year. Now, you ask me right now what I think 2026 is going to bring. It's going to be you wake up, you check this thing, and you wonder, what are we doing right now? What in the world just happened today,
Yeah, what's
and how is
next?
it going to
Yeah,
affect me?
yeah.
But what's perfect is we've looked at this 125-year timeline and seen, both all the like the smaller events, the products that have come and gone, but we've also looked at like the theme. So this is a perfect year. Back to your question of like, how do we lean into it? We're going to tell this story of 125 years, and we're going to tell it in this sort of like parallel, almost ironic paths of one. So much has changed. Like no one in the world would have thought we have a device that we could watch and see and get any information at all time at a time when the radio was going to kill music, piano sales forever. Like how much has changed in this world, that
No
idea.
kidding.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, 1901, the organization was founded by a group of retailers who wanted to fight counterfeit products, false advertising, and they wanted to negotiate better freight prices.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
How much has
That's an
really
interesting.
changed?
Yeah, yeah,
So
really, we're doing the same thing. Yeah.
we're going to tell this
Are
story
there?
Thursday morning session. All these little things
Yeah.
of like, yes, like the TV was revolutionary, but you know what came on the TV? The Beatles. And you know what that did? That created the guitar, bass, piano, drum shop. And that was the time when the TVs and the radios and all went to different stores, and the retailer turned into the true music store and thrived for a long time. So we
But
can
at
look
that first
back.
show, John, were there any manufacturers involved at that time, or was it just the retailers getting together for a
The
conference?
organization, the organization was founded as a retail organization. It's actually there was a piano manufacturers association, and NAMM was founded as the Piano Retailers Association
Uh,
that created a co-conference with the Manufacturers Association. And over time, it all became music
yeah, I
merchants.
was going to ask if there were any brands that were there at that first show that are going to be at this show as well, and I
Oh,
guess not.
Steinway, I'm sure. I mean, that's you look at like the piano, it would be a
Yeah,
piano
because
brand.
of the dual sides of the show, the Piano Manufacturers Association as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But we talk about the 125-year stories are going to remind us that everything we're dealing with right now and I've actually crafted the story. There's like, geopolitical threats, obviously wars, there's economic recessions, depressions, all this stuff. These things have happened. Now they're probably happening faster right now, but these things have always set us back. But two things have been in common. I'm kind of give you the punchline. The two things that have been in common throughout all of this is one, we're the music industry. Music is universally, coveted in society. People want to make and play music. They want to do it in hard times. They want to do it when they're locked at home in a pandemic. They always want to do music. If we were the National Association of Telephone Switchboard Operators, we probably wouldn't be around still, or milkmen. I think but
right.
we're music. So we have to realize that like we are blessed to be in an industry that will always want to make music. And then there's a message there that's like, just hang on. Like, yeah, there'll be good times and bad times, but our industry isn't going away. It's just going to evolve. We don't have to worry about, we're not the ice block delivery association. We don't have to worry. We're not the horsewhip association. Like, our industry's not going to go away. It's just going to evolve. Second is, we've been guided as an association. We're guided by a board, and a board of people who actually compete with each other. But they all come in, they put their NAMM hats on, and they think about how to make the industry better, and they all rally around giving back and supporting more music makers through the NAMM Foundation, and that energy just keeps propelling us. And I think it's the perfect time to deliver that message at this show to remind people that, like, look, last year, who knows what tariffs are going to do? Is the Supreme Court going to rule left or right? How's it going to work? We'll figure this out, but we're going to continue to work together. And no matter what, even a global pandemic that says it's not safe to move air or stand next to another human in a large
Yeah.
crowd can't stop music making. And if anything was going to stop music making, it's that. Like, we're always
Yeah,
going
it's
to have
amazing
music.
how the industry thrived during that period of time, because people were sitting at home and wanted to learn to play a guitar or whatever. You know, I know guitar retailers and even Reverb and companies like that seem to do very well during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Take advantage of the
Yeah.
opportunity. I think AI is the radio of our time. AI is the TV of our time. AI is the talking machine of our time. AI is the internet. The thing that's new, that's unknown, that we don't know if it's gonna, how, I'm not saying if, how it's going to completely change certain segments of our industry, what jobs that might not exist now that exist in the future. That's the big scary thing. But having a big scary unknown thing is not new to our
It's a
industry.
little bigger and scarier and more unknown, though. That's what I would say. Like, I was going to save this topic for a bit later, but I think we should dive into it because
Yeah.
I can't help but remember the very first time I tried Suno, and it blew my friggin' mind. Like, it just blew my mind. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I just created a song. I can change it from, rock and roll to hip hop to blues to whatever. Put a female singer in now. No, go back to a male singer, but maybe make him more soul like. I mean, it's just lunacy. It's lunacy how easy it is. And I guess, one of the things I had this conversation with someone yesterday who happens to be a very long life musician guy from Canada who's still he started earning a living, I think, when he was 16 years old, and he's in his late 60s now and still earning a living playing music professionally every week, never had a job, never had a real job outside of playing music. Um, but he said to me, the difference is it just has no soul. You can hear the missing soul. And there's some truth to that, I think. What says you?
Um, on that topic, I do think, you know, there's a trend historically of the fads and the trends, like everyone jumps on the new shiny thing. I mean, drum machines were cool for a year. Drum machines were, and then we just wanted to sample real drums and we say, maybe we should just have real drums.
Yeah,
So there was, that time. And then later people found the 808 and like, oh, this is actually a cool sound. Let me use it in hip hop. Okay. So there's times in history we see these stories, play out this way. AI is definitely not going away. I mean, we know that. Now, I still think we're in the experimental phase that we're hearing certain things. I think people will, come around to the fact that, like, no one's going to go out to a concert, get dressed up, get their friends together, get excited to go hear robots play. Like the idea of seeing a person on stage engaging. I think the ability to engage with an audience. I mean, artists are like really accessible on Instagram. You can follow your artist on Instagram and they like post all this content. It's like you feel like you know them as a human being because you see them with their kids, or you see them on a
that's been
Saturday. They're just
such a huge model for growth in recorded music. Like the
yeah.
people who are able to develop those fan bases. You know, it's funny because the CEO of Live Nation, I remember an article from last year, I think it was, where someone asked him, do you see growth coming in the concert space still? How can you keep having more and more concerts? And he said, well, um, so many artists out there right now have, 100 million followers. All we have to do is sell tickets to 5% of them.
Mhm.
And he's right. He's right. I mean, as long as social media keeps doing what it's doing or YouTube or whatever, online platforms in general, uh, live music, there's always going to be an appetite. Now, I would push back and become devil's advocate to you a little bit when you said nobody wants to go dress up and go see robots playing in concert. Yet EDM is one of the largest, from a festival standpoint, at least. EDM is one of the largest music genres. And, the DJ is not really doing much. Let's
Yeah.
face it.
Well, depending on the
Uh,
DJ, that's I knew you
yeah,
were
it
going
depends on
there
the
too.
DJ.
I've been
Yeah.
into DJ a little bit too, and it's now like DJ education, DJ schools. I've been just talking to someone else that's doing DJ schools at all the locations. Um,
Yeah.
the right DJ is, people in like that's an artist. And so yeah, there is some like, random club music, but I think to make the point, like going to an EDM club to party and dance where there's music is not what I'm talking about. It's going to
Right.
see
Of
an
course, an
artist.
artist. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, the technology will, I mean, so I think the power, I believe firmly in the power of humans wanting to see humans make music and engage in that. They want the
Yeah.
imperfection. They want they want real. I think the more we get, think about post COVID. We were all online. What did we want to do the second it was safe to get out? We ran out to play like it was recess in fifth grade. I mean, the travel industry, the tourism industry, the concert industry, we could not
Of
wait to
course.
get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Humans desire to be around each other and to experience art. I have a feeling that the more AI things get, and the more just quite frankly, AI is ruining social media. It's ruining. You don't I
Oh,
have
I
to post
completely agree with you.
it's all fake. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all this news, videos, everything's just fake. You can't trust anything. So I found myself putting my phone down and going for walks out here. It's like it's starting. I think it's going to reach a boiling point where, like, you know what, the 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 desire for humans to want real is going to be more and more. Here's one for you that
Yeah.
I waver on because I'm a music educator in my heart. I spent a lot of time. One of my career paths was teaching teachers how to teach music creation and music production. That was sort of something I got into a lot as, a traditional music educator. I could, do this thing and do that thing and all that.
Yeah.
But teaching, GarageBand and teaching kids how to like make beats and loops and what the value of that is and didn't quite fit in the traditional like music assessment model. That was all really exciting for me. But now to your point, you had to learn something about music. You had to learn form, you had to learn structure, harmony, you had to put now you're playing with AI, you can blah, 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 play a song. So here's where I don't know what's going to happen. I'm watching carefully. I've seen over time, every time the bar lowers for making music, whether it's I can drag and drop loops instead of having to program my own MIDI, I can just go find a MIDI loop I want and just drag it in. Every time the bar lowers, it becomes easier and you get more people that can come in and try music making, which and on one hand can be a good thing. AI, people can go make a song. And anytime I've seen it with students, I've seen it with adults. You lit up when you talked about it. But anytime someone makes music, even if it's on an app, like, hey, create a soulful voice in the style of this, and they hear it, they go, I created that. They get that bug. But as it gets, I'm not going to say dumbed down, but I said I'm not going to say it, so I guess I said it. As music making gets just more mindless and easier, one, people get the joy of like, oh, I created a song. But then the gap between the level of proficiency, which I have to learn an instrument, I have to have some musical knowledge, I have to start actually learning about this thing to then get on the path. The gap to that path gets larger. And do
Yeah.
we start more people in a really easy, mindless way and get the tried that mentality? That was fun. Now I'm going to go be a video editor because I can do that with AI. Like,
You know
do
what,
we
though?
lose? Yeah.
So I'd give you a couple answers to that. First of all, did you ever see the South Park episode when they were playing, what was that, the video game with the Guitar Hero?
Guitar
And,
Hero.
the kids were sitting there playing Guitar Hero in the living room. If you haven't seen this, you got to look it up because it's absolutely hilarious. And I think they were at Cartman's house or something. And Cartman's dad is like, oh, the kids are playing music. So he comes down the stairs with a guitar and an amplifier and he plugs the guitar in and he starts playing, once I rose above the noise and confusion, Carry On Our Wayward Son by
Uh-huh.
Kansas.
Yeah.
And they're all just sitting there completely still and staring at him. And he finishes, and Cartman goes, "Dad, real guitars are for old people." And I just went, "Oh no, he's right." That's crazy. But that's a South Park episode from whenever that game was big. It was probably 15 years ago or something.
Mhm.
And I remember seeing it and just going, "Wow, that is nuts." But that's sort of the direction it's taking. And like, I don't know, when I look at young kids, and I'm talking the vast majority, not all, there's a lot of young kids who love classic music, classic rock, guitar music, things like that, trumpets. But I think the vast majority are getting away from that and creating things that they can create using their iPhone. uh, because they're on the go, because they don't want to sit in their room with a guitar in their lap and learn the hard parts of playing a guitar or whatever. The flip
Mhm.
side of that is I see so many videos of these like young, like I think she was a Filipino girl or something this morning, just flailing on a guitar on YouTube. And she couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. Or all these drummers that are 4 years old playing Rush songs and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. But it just seems like that's the smaller number than the ones who are going to look for the sort of easy solution. Suno.
I agree. There if there's a pyramid, and it's like everything else. I mean, it's always a pyramid. The most people are gonna start, and then fewer and fewer are gonna continue, and, it's gonna we're definitely creating tools to let more people make songs, write music, play virtual instruments than ever. But are we just increasing the gap? Because there's the level of I have to pick up an instrument and learn enough about music to go in a band and play and have that experience. That doesn't that doesn't get any lower. The entry point. So if as the gap between that level and the entry point gets bigger, is the ladder between the entry point and the early proficiency point
It's a great
there?
question.
Or is it getting
Yeah.
so big that it's like, well, that was easy. Wait, guitar is hard. Oh, I don't want to do that because you know, but at the same time, and again, this is the argument I have with myself. The more people, and you look back historically, because I've been spending all year reading this incredible history of NAMM. Historically, if history at least rhymes, as some say they do, that these ideas of like this thing's going to kill it because it's going to make it so easy that no one's going to learn piano because they could just listen to the radio. Literally words that were said in the early 1900s. But what came out of that is more people playing music later in a different way we didn't expect. So I just have to believe that if history rhymes, something's going to happen where more people will be playing music because music is more accessible to more people. That's actually
Yeah.
always been true, but it's been scary. It's always been doubted in the moment and true after the moment.
Well,
And
I
maybe we
happen
should
to be
just
with
schedule
you.
5 years from now.
I do have guitars hanging on the wall behind me still. I do like real guitars still. I do play occasionally still. And, I love kids that really do get into the actual playing of music. And I love entertainers. I love watching live bands, and I'm not a fan of EDM music. And no, I couldn't sit and just look at a screen putting cool colors and stuff while I'm listening to music that's being created by an AI app at that point or whatever. However, I have created, for like somebody's birthday, I'll create a song for them on Suno and email it to them. And they're like, "Oh my God, how long did it take you to write that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 47
It took me
seconds,
longer
I
to
think
write
it
the
was."
prompt.
Yeah, exactly. It took me longer to prompt it than anything. So, one of the things about me being old is I was there when you guys really started going after the lighting business in particular. I know
Mhm.
sound sort of caught on earlier because there was tie-ins to PV had guitars and amplifiers, and they also had sound systems. Many companies sort of had, that kind of a platform, but lighting was very different. And so when we first started going to, the company that I worked for at the time, started going to the NAMM show, I believe it was 1992 was the first time I went to the NAMM show as a lighting company. And I remember we were in the hallway between the main convention center and where you exited to go out to the Hilton. So, if you walked out the back door there or the side door, you went right out to the Hilton. And we were stuffed into the hallway where people were just walking through. And going back to Eddie Van Halen, I remember he walked in our booth and I just stood there like in awe going, "Oh my God, how can I help you?" And he goes, "This stuff is cool. What is this
Mm.
stuff?" And, he had all these questions, and I'm here answering questions about lighting with Eddie Van Halen. And so that was cool. But the other thing that I found to be really cool was music retailers were looking at ways to expand their businesses and to bring more product to more customers. And so they tripped over us and went, "Oh, I've been wanting to get into this lighting stuff. I'm so happy you're here." And so it really did work. Like it was something that,
Yeah.
for me, really became one of the shows that I loved. And the downside was like if you had 70,000 or 50,000 people or whatever, let's say 50 because it's an easy number, um, probably 42,000 of those had zero interest whatsoever in lighting. So we would stand by ourselves a lot. And then occasionally, people would come by and say, "Wow, I'm so happy I tripped over you." So it was worth doing, but it wasn't for us. We weren't the core audience for that show or we weren't the people they were there to see.
Artistry in Motion. When it's time to make a moment unforgettable, Artistry in Motion delivers. Since 1994, they've been the go-to source for top-tier confetti and streamer special effects, turning ordinary events into explosive, show-stopping experiences. From concerts and TV production to major sporting events and theme parks, they bring the wow factor with precision and creativity. Whether you need a massive stadium drop or a subtle, picture perfect cascade, they make it happen on time every time. Their team doesn't just supply confetti, they collaborate with show designers, event planners, and production teams to ensure every effect is camera ready and crowd approved. Want to take your next event to the next level? Hit them up at artistryinmotion.com and make memories happen.
Oh, but it sounds like you got pretty incredible value out of it.
We
And I
did,
think that's
yeah.
the thing too to remember that like, and essentially it's back to like the NAMM board and the way we think and our guidance. Our board is equal manufacturers and equal retailers. We're an organization of both. A lot of associations, by the way, are one or the other. The so and so auto manufacturers association, the blah 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 retail. We're an association of the whole industry, which is
Yeah.
great, which is sometimes what retailers want, what manufacturers want can be different. But we think a lot about it. So like the idea of like for us is what does a retailer walking around the NAMM show get value in the same way that a manufacturer there exhibiting gets value. And even back to like, NAMM now starts on Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we're packed all day. But the exhibits don't open until Thursday. So we have education, we have summits, we have manufacturers sending their marketing people to go to all day marketing summits so they
Hmm.
can actually, take advantage of that now. We have retail, financial, education, like all things that go. We have Dante training, levels 1 and level 2. We have console training, all kinds of things where so that's another thing too about like making sure everyone gets value out of the show is really, really important for us.
Yeah. Well, again, old memory from the early 90s. I remember meeting a guy at the NAMM show who just walked up like that saying, "Oh, lighting. Yeah, I've been wanting to get into this stuff." And I said, "Well, why? Who are you?" And his name was Brett Palin. And I don't even know if they're still around, but his family
Failing
had
music.
a music store called Palin Music in Missouri.
Mhm.
And he said, "We're doing a lot of business with Branson, and they've been asking me if I have access to lighting. And would you be able to help me with that?" So I think we helped him with his first two or three designs and installations and stuff so that he could figure out sort of how to sell this stuff. And he got pretty successful doing lighting,
Yeah.
which was incredible.
Funny
We helped
story.
educate him and he brought us some new business that we didn't have before. So it was
My
pretty
first
cool.
career in the industry was at PreSonus Audio, and I had taught music. I'd started, like I said, teaching technology, and living in Baton Rouge, I got involved at PreSonus and just talking to people at PreSonus. about like my curriculum, and I was the only one teaching music technology. In fact, the state of Louisiana like just didn't approve the course from our school because they have to, register with the state at some point. They're like, we don't have music technology. We don't know where to put it. So I actually went to the State Department and created music technology as a state level course because I was like, no,
Oh,
we're going to do this. It was 2000 something. Like, come on, this is not going away. So anyway, as I got involved with PreSonus and started that job, I was like, look, the entire world of music, 50 million students in the US are in school. Every school, these music teachers could teach production, they could teach recording, they could educate every future person, every future customer that we have as a company is in school right now. If all those people see at the time was PreSonus, so it was like the blue box, we were the blue interface. Everyone had a $99 interface. We had the blue one, someone had the red one, someone had the gray one. I won't name names.
yeah.
But I was like, look, we're gonna be the first to educate every future customer on the blue box. That's what got me the job. And we started going out. We started making these educator kits, this how to record your school band, one-stop kits with full curriculum on how to teach music production and all that. But we had all this stuff, and so I'm going to these teacher events, doing these conferences, and these teachers are like, "This is great." Blah, blah, blah. But then the biggest holdup was the retail channel, because retailers didn't sell the stuff. They didn't know what to do with it. And we had created so much demand, and we weren't selling direct. We were going through the retail channel, onto the retail channel. So we ended up having to like do programs. That's how I got the job at Hal Leonard, because Hal Leonard ended up distributing, because they had such a strong distribution network to a lot of retailers that would not be normal PreSonus customers, but were really strong education customers. So that's how that all worked.
Right.
But what was really cool is that Palin Music was one of the first ones to say, "Hey, come out to," it was I think they're in Kansas and Missouri. They're like, "Come out to our Kansas MEA or Missouri MEA or whatever it was." They're like, "Come out and do a workshop at like, we'll sponsor your workshop at the local conference. We'll sponsor you. We'll carry this product. We're gonna embrace this." And so just having that's so funny you mentioned like they took on the new thing in 1992.
Yeah.
They did it for me in 2014. Like
Wow.
they embraced something. So that like legacy of a company just taking on something and saying,
That's
"We're gonna do
wild.
this," and they did pretty well.
I don't know
Um,
why I remember that exact company, because I probably haven't spoken to Palin Music in 25 years. So I mean it's pretty wild that I remember exactly that company in that moment when Brett walked into our booth at NAMM. So it was interesting. But also you've got the Parnellis that you've had for a few years now too, right? The Parnelli Awards
yeah,
for
so
the
back
live
to
event
lighting,
space.
we want the whole stage. Like NAMM is the whole stage. And so like we have a lot of opportunities for lighting companies. We're talking to a lot of them. We're just some big ideas. Um, uh, but the Parnellis has been such a great relationship. And I just think the world of Timeless, Terry Lowe, all those guys, what they've done, the Parnellis, this will be the eighth Parnelli at NAMM. I think the ninth or 10th year, because we skipped a couple years because COVID, but the eighth Parnelli show at the NAMM show, that relationship, really drives such a great group of folks that come to celebrate the people. What I love about Parnelli is not only does it bring like the power of like timeless media and all their amazing connections, front of house magazine, PLSN, all the things they do so, so well, but it celebrates the people behind the product. NAMM's had the tech
Yeah.
awards for a long time. We do best in show, we do product awards, we're a product show. But you think about Parnelli and also She Rocks. These awards shows that we also have on campus that we treat as our own. They're family to us. They're core NAMM experiences. Having these on campus and part of the NAMM show, they celebrate the people in the industry too. And I think that's what I love about what Parnelli brings.
Yeah.
And just the folks that show up to do that show.
It's become a bit of a world-class event, like I know in our industry, a lot of people take awards, like a joke, like, oh, big deal. You got an award. So what? What's that mean? But the Barnelli's always meant something. It's always kind of been a little bit more important. And I think the relationship with NAMM, the partnership with NAMM, is probably a big reason why, because, when it first started out, yeah, it was good where it used to be, but I think it just got sort of that much better with the whole NAMM relationship. But again, it was weird because you were bringing a bunch of lighting people who had never been to the NAMM show going, what's this? Let's go check it out. And so, yeah, blending a couple of different things there.
The whole stage. That's what NAMM is. It's the whole stage. And we've expanded even just our thought about like, NAMM membership. We just did a bylaw update 2025. And like, we went through and just what you do when you're the new guy, you just look at everything and say, is there
Yeah,
anything that like that's been lingering for like 5 decades? And some of it was like some of these just the old classification of like who is a NAMM member company. And we kind of looked at it and said, if you're a backline company, like, are you buying gear from manufacturers and put it in the hands of musicians? Yes. You're a full-fledged NAMM member. Like, come on, let's embrace that. If you're a rental
that's
house, if
cool.
you're a
Yeah,
lesson studio, if you're these massive like School of Rock, Bach to Rock, all these other, like we looked at this and said, our membership is much larger, and so we've embraced that sort of larger world. And I think that really helps us, it's not, the pro audio community, the pro lighting community is not a hall to us. It's not North
yeah.
Hall second level. It's
Well,
it's
it
it's a
used to
core
be.
membership.
I remember when we got
Well,
pushed
yeah.
downstairs, and that's sort of where it ended for me as a manufacturer, or as a person making some of those decisions for manufacturers. For a few years there, it kind of got pushed downstairs into the back corner, and it just felt a little dirty at that point. And you
Yeah, well,
guys have
Anaheim
really done a
built when
great
when
job.
Anaheim built that North Hall, that gave and then the
Yeah,
20, teens, that gave us the opportunity to, like, leverage more
yeah,
space, and that was really cool. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, there's been a
Yeah.
booth location always a point of
So, I
contention.
can't keep you all day, but let me ask you one more thing. I,
Yeah,
I
hit
actually
me.
have 1,000 more things I want to ask you, but I actually have a meeting in 8 minutes too. Um,
Sorry.
what does success look like for your show 5 to 10 years from now?
Great question. We actually measure success. We decided, starting with last year's show internally, that success for us is measured on pure customer satisfaction. And we looked and we talked, and as again, back to talking to so many companies in the industry, all the really, really successful companies had one thing in common. They care deeply about what their customers think of them. They do right for the customer no matter what. And that thread, I said, and NAMM's always done that. Like NAMM's a servant. We looked at it and said, you know what? Success for NAMM is we have internal OKRs. I have them on every leader's desk. Everyone knows
I love
our
it.
measurements of us. And the number one we have of our company from the NAMM show is over 90% customer satisfaction. We survey everyone. And if that's what we look at, it's not a square footage goal. No, we have, trust me, we have square footage goals, we have attendance goals, we have revenue goals, we're a business. Oh, we have all that. But success looks like people there saying, I love it and I can't wait to come back next year. And that's
I
what
love
we
that.
believe right now. I don't know if that changes in 5 to 10 years. I mean, I think we have to keep our eye on that prize, because if you keep your eye on the prize of people saying that you gave them what they wanted, it allows you to evolve and adapt. Because we might have, it might take a little shape. There might be different experiences. There might be different days, or, as the industry evolves and as companies try different things with our platform, we want to do that. The most important thing is companies said, hey, that was it. That was great. We were so
Yeah,
successful. Let's do it again.
that's cool. I know I said it was the last question, but I thought of one more that I got to ask you. So,
Hit me.
I know NAMM has always been an international show. I was an international, coming from Canada. It's not that international, but it was always an international show. Did you become even more international when Music Mess went away?
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, we are the
you're it
international
now.
show. We're
Yeah,
a global show. We have, over 105 countries registered as of earlier this morning. We'll get up to 120, 125. 20% of our registrants right now are internet outside the US. That'll stay about 20, 30%. And I spend a lot. So we're actually doing these NAMM Next events. We're going to announce at the NAMM Show. We did NAMM Next Europe last year as a small test event, highly successful. So we're doing we're doing NAMM Next Europe and NAMM Next Latin America. These are conference leadership gatherings, not trade shows, but we are absolutely international membership. We serve the global industry.
There's got to be a
Our industry's
discussion
global.
about doing a European summer show or something, Summer NAMM in Europe.
Well, yeah, so NAMM Next is a leadership conference that gets together retailers, manufacturers, distributors for sessions and networking. So you're pretty smart to realize that two legs of the stool are there. We are working closely with our European partners, and we are serving them. If our members want something, we will absolutely deliver it. I'll
Yeah,
leave it at
that makes
that.
so much sense. John, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for doing this. I'm a huge fan of NAMM, as I said, and spent a lot of years going to it, and you're doing a fantastic job, especially given the, stuff that's happened since COVID and just all of these changes. I mean, AI and tariffs and all of this stuff, you're managing some pretty crazy stuff. So great job. And I wish I was going this year because I love the NAMM show, but I just can't. So good luck with it. Good luck with the show. I hope it's tremendously successful.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to tell some really, just more personal stories about NAMM and where we are. And I'll see you in 2027.
Absolutely. Thanks.